but I immigrated from Mexico. I am part of El Cambio, which is a local grassroots organization doing work with the immigrant community as well as the LGBT community. On a national level, I work with Gerico, doing the immigration campaign work with in regards with LGBT detention with undocumented immigrants. So just a little bit on myself. And I am undocumented and queer as well.
My name is Sejano Sola. I'm fairly new to the Triangle, so like as a local organizer, I'm much more in awe and respect of the folks who've been doing some great work for much longer than I have, particularly Black leaders who are really, I want to just like give my time and power to during this particular moment. For myself, I am currently researching some of the work that's happening with refugees in the Triangle and Triad, particularly around labor and oppression and how those are interlinked right now. Myself, I'm Palestinian. I definitely see the struggle for Black liberation as very integral to the struggle and apartheid. These are global apartheids. These are all interrelated, and militarization is the core of that. And right now involved in a Muslims for Social Justice group that is working not only between the divides that are happening between immigrant, Black, brown mosques in North Carolina and how we can build coalition between them, but along through centralizing the struggle and being in the struggle together for Black liberation, but recognizing within that like the kind of dynamics and the kind of really deep-seated ones that we have, especially into the immigration in this country, which happens with myself as an Arab, happen on the backs historically of naturalized Black citizens. So we have to kind of like bring these issues together and see what we're doing. So yeah.
Chelsea.
Hi y'all, I'm Chelsea. I'm a senior at Guilford College. The bulk of the organizing that I do is around sexual assault, prevention of sexual violence, and reproductive justice. I started moving into organizing around police brutality and state-sanctioned violence. I also work with a really cool student-run coffee co-op that Avery was a part of, and a lot of them were you actually But yeah, it's called the Green Coffee Co-op. It's been open for 10 years, and it's been completely work-around by students the whole time. So if you're ever by Guilford, you should get coffee because I would here for coffee.
So I'm not gonna stand up. I'm gonna just talk real loud. But my name is Irving David Allen, like Holden said, my whole name. I'm an organizer here in Greensboro with the Beloved Community Center. I'm also an organizer with QPOT. I am the Communications Chair for the local chapter of the NAACP, and I'm now on the National Council for the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And there's probably some others. Oh yeah, and I'm the Regional Field Director for an ANC. So I do work.
My name is Eliza again. Thank you all for being here, and it's like such an honor to be on this panel. Weird, scattered stars, constellation thing with all of these magnificent people. I'm very humbled to share this with you all. I do a lot of things. I don't know who I'm associated with most of the time, but some of the things that I'm connected with involve participatory budgeting Greensboro, the USA Cooperative Youth Council, QPOC here in Greensboro, the Greensboro Mural Project. I'm really interested in the intersections of both like creative expression, narrative, and like being able to create our own stories and record our own stories. And so that's something that like often gets overlooked. So I mean, just like I was thinking about it, like what are the public spaces that are near us? You know, what are the things that are put into them to represent our histories? And so like, you know, like we have like a little roundabout circle that's like Nathaniel Green. Okay, he was a slave owner. Like, is this what we're trying to promote? Is this what we're trying to represent? How is it that we're and at the same time, like right in front of that statue, like we'll have Lane, who's like been hit by a train, or like someone who's experiencing homelessness, like having to take a seat, and then the police are telling them to like, no, you gotta move on. And so just thinking about the role of public space, how we're being policed in public space, who's like being encouraged to like be in this space and like, you know, like, oh, if it's walkable, that's its walkability score, but like still public space is occupied often by working class folks, by brown folks, by black folks, and yet so often like it's a space that also will not be in. And then also simultaneously like where economic justice comes into play, so like that's why like rural budgeting and cooperative economics are also things that I'm really interested in. Because like on our little scattered constellation, I don't know if you have any what your economic backgrounds are, but I know that like David was at the U.S. Federation of the Worker Co-ops conference in Chicago this year. Chelsea is she's a worker owner at the Coumminty. Vidal and I are exploring a worker-owned co-op, and so like thinking about also how we can create our own economies since we're being excluded from mainstream.
I just wanted to ask that before we transition to the community organizers panel, since we have so many voices here, I think it'd be important to have those voices lifted up. If there's anyone here in this space that would like to say why you actually came to this event, and why you're here today, we'd love to open it up to you to say a few words.
Not only because my granddaughter told me about it, and she knew I'd been an activist all my life. I'm 86 years old now, and I've done just about everything that you're doing now. And one thing that I think that you should discuss is that there's probably only two ways to bring about change. And one is to elect people in power that will really represent you. And the other thing is to really turn out in big numbers for demonstrations. They have to be really, really big. And to that you have to build coalitions. And I just want to talk just a second about that because I'm a member of Veterans for Peace, and there's a local chapter here that got started. There's only 6 of us, but it is a national organization, and they're having a dialogue right now, which is kind of splitting the organization up a little bit. And I think this is a big problem for everybody. And that is, they have a saying, peace abroad, peace at home. And they're trying to link the two things together. And there are those in the organization that say, well, we've always been, against military interventions, we've always been outside, and we shouldn't get, spread ourselves too thin. So I think maybe there's something to be said both ways, but the answer is to build coalitions. So if you are going to go out in the streets, and I hope you will, I hope that you will get the word out, and we'll be there, because our little 6-man chapter here has said that we want to support the Tomorrow Monday group, and I understand you've got a bus going on the 16th to Raleigh, and we want to be on the. I'll be on the bus. The other 5 fellows will or not, I don't know. So I mean, you've got to get the word out and really build big numbers. And the other thing is, the other half is that you have to start running candidates. Because you can't depend on Democrats and Republicans to represent you, because they're already sold out to the corporations and the money. Both have it. So you really have to start running your own candidates, and I hope that tomorrow, I was encouraged when tomorrow majorities started out in the streets, because that was really broad. It wasn't an elite group like Peace Action, which I was involved with. That was a very elite group, practically all white. But tomorrow majority, that was multi-politics, multi-economics, and everything. But they never got in the seat of power where the decisions are being made. So I hope you'll consider doing both things, both try to educate the public and motivate the public by getting big numbers out in the streets, by getting the words out and building. I think that Tomorrow Monday has a good idea. And the other thing is run candidates.
Space where all voices are valued, so before we transition, if there's others that want to stand up again.
Yeah, I'm going to leave real quick. My name is Dominic. I'm the president of CIASIS, the Pan-Africanist Coalition. I believe in uplifting indigenous people in these national first before we start for help. I believe in self-independence and actual unification of the community. I'm focusing on black people who went through the worst Holocaust in history, particularly reports to see that. Basically, I just want to see what the community was up to. I see a lot of different faces in here. Diversity is good. It's good to have people that are educated on the different structures of others. You never really like to see someone else's experience, and I've come to realize that too as well. but at the same time, you can't expect to grow up if you want to put a pacifier in your mouth. So do for yourself first, and then unify people in your community, and then you can try to work with other people with that agenda. Very well, very, very well. So keep protesting, keep fighting for what you have to do, but also realize that you need resources. You can't protest and say that someone's doing you wrong. You're going back to that person to get everything that you need. So get economic power. I think the one mentioned that too. We need economic power and education. Those are the two most powerful things in the world. So as you're reading your books and as you're trying to uplift your mind and to uplift your people, also try to put your resources together, put your money together, do whatever you can to recycle the money that you have, recycle your resources, and grow from there. Because no one's going to give you any respect until you start doing for yourself or doing fine for yourselves. I just agree with that.
Because I am a feature writer for the Carolinian, and I was told about this in my African American Studies class, and I'm just so impressed and amazed by all of these dedicated people, and if I could just have words with a few of you after this is over, so I could exchange information or just talk about your causes specifically, I would be very grateful.
Hi, I'm Izzy. I work with the youth at the Center for Near Carolinian. We have to go because it's a school night, but I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm sure we'll be back.
I'm Tony. I'm with the Hands Up Winston-Salem Work Coalition that's coming together. It's one of our goal makers too. We have an event next week, next Thursday, if you guys can make it, next Thursday evening. Probably the rally will begin either at 5:30 or 6. We're working out some details with Wake Forest students, but the time frame will be between 5 and 7:30. So if you guys can make it out to Winston, we can throw it down and have another good rally. We've had some good rallies so far. I've been an activist for a long time, probably as long as some of you might have been alive. So that's anti-war, anti-corporation, even some anti-capitalist movements. So I've been down for a while, but this is a sort of a broad coalition. And I think the question that we have here is the same as we have in every city. Is systemically, what are we going to do? Because until we break down systems of oppression, we can continue to put band-aids on different things. So I think people are starting to touch on like systemic issues in the panel, and I think it'd be great if we continue to have that discussion.
How's everybody doing? My name is Phil Jones. I'm with a young movement, we're in level community movement, and we're just here to really connect with the community and feel the heartbeat of the community, and also to express the fact that we realize that the things that are plaguing society have a spiritual implication to it, which is the fact that we're dealing with the spirit of fear and the spirit of division and separation among humanity as a whole, and we just want to fight that with love and unity. So it's good to be in this with you guys.
Hey, peace, y'all. My name is April Parker. I'm the organizer with the Queer People of Color Collective. I appreciate everybody sharing space today. I just wanted to say that we're trying to centralize a whole bunch of stuff going on with all the folks that are doing work and putting in work, and especially y'all. So if you wanted to remain connected, you can go to Black Lives Matter Greensboro. I try to update that as frequently as possible, and then we'll probably come out with like a WordPress by the end of the week, and just a place where we can keep all of our stuff. So I'm also responsible for generating a community calendar of things that are going on in the movement around the city. So if you connect with Black Lives Matter Greensboro on Facebook, I'll be able to give you all of that information.
My name is Demonte. I work with the Youth Scholars Division of the North Carolina NAACP. I'm also a teacher in the area. So I'm a civics and economics teacher. So I get to indoctrinate the kids.
So I want to So I want to connect something that happened, something that was said in the panel, in the live stream panel, to some work that I did into this local community discussion where I think her name was Lean Stamps. She was talking about like the Black Lives Matter movement and talking about, oh yeah, like talking about black folks, but also how she lives in these intersections, right? She lives in the intersection of being black, but also being black woman. And thinking about how like all these things are interconnected and how all of our liberation are interconnected together, which ties into the exercise that allows us to this through where folks would step in the middle, who all work around similar things, and then people would say, you are wrong. So I'm interested to hear how folks, the community organizers that you brought in today, and also everybody else, how do you see your particular work connected to these intersections of oppression with the Black Lives Matter movement? Chelsea, you want to start something?
My thinking phase. I think, actually, thank you for asking this question. But I think in thinking about the green leaf, like, and thinking about what it means to have economic power, it's been really interesting being in a co-op that there is no boss, and you set your own hours, and you are able to really trust the people that you're working with to like find solutions to make this thing run. And then even beyond that, the fact that the money that you make stays in your community and goes back to help build up your community is something that I'm thinking about a lot, and how the co-op structure was really a big thing in producing civil rights, like foot soldiers, like taking care of yourselves and your community, like building up businesses, and how you keep your money within your own community has been really important. And I think the co-op model is a really good model for being able to build up an effective, strong economic community, because you don't really have power unless you have purchasing power. My co-op, admittedly, is like really white. I grew up on campus, but just thinking about the way that the model works and the other co-ops that I've observed throughout my time being in the Green Leaf is something that I think is really important to consider when we talk about buying black and black-owned businesses. It's not just the fact that someone black is owning the business, but how that person is treating their workers. What is the working environment even like? Because some people can't handle certain working environments due to the way that their bodies are made. So how do we make sure that everybody within this black-owned business has a good working environment and is able to work to the best of their abilities and the health of the organization and the business? And I guess with the sexual assault work and reproductive justice work that I do, I think those are typically seen as white women's issues, but reproductive justice has been an Indigenous woman's issue for years and years and years, of black women's issues for years and years and years. Black women and Indigenous women have been sterilized, like state-sanctioned sterilized for years and years. Black women are victims of sexual assault and sexual violence, and that's rarely talked about, it's glossed over. And I think that we need to expand the conversation about what is violence, because I hear a lot about Trayvon Martin, but I don't hear a lot about Daniel Holtzclaw, who was the man that was let out of jail after he was found guilty of raping several black women in a very calculated manner. So I think we need to think about, and my part in this movement is really trying to get people to think about what is violence in a larger sense, rather than just the way that we think of racism as like someone in Walmart that calls me a nigger or something. Like, it's not a small, like, one-on-one harsh incident. It's like a larger, more systemic thing that needs to be talked about in the past.
Looking into the face. That was everything. Oh yeah, and can people speak up and extend and elevate their voices, their beautiful voices into the atmosphere?
I would say, I mean, just going off that, like, I just want to like around the space. It's pretty easy sometimes to get like really attached to like what we're working on. And I would say that at any time that you feel something is incompatible with what you're working on, that's incompatible with liberation. And I feel like in terms of why like I was drawn to this Black Lives Matter movement, it's not from like just being moved by this one situation, but it's a system of unmournable and mournable bodies that we're talking about. I mean, Palestine in general, I can talk for a long time about why Palestine is Ferguson, why Palestine is related to these issues. But I think, I mean, and we can talk about like the corporations, the funds, and we can talk about that, you know, these the sheriffs, of all over this country making counterterrorism. In Israel, we can talk about the NYPD has 2 liaison offices in Israel, one in Tel Aviv, one in West Jerusalem. We can talk about 3,000 American citizens who are fighting in the Israeli military, who are coming back as cops and working in our police force and coming back with these sorts of mentalities. I mean, we can talk about the tear gas canisters and the companies who make them, and we can talk about also the coalitions that are made historically. It's not these new things where people are tweeting, how to protect yourself, how they're tweeting to black activists in Ferguson how to deal with tear gas. I mean, the Black Panther Party and the PLO and housing and bridge have been involved for so long. I mean, the work that's been done in Algiers has built liberation coalitions for so long. I feel like right now, though, what we're talking about, we're in a space that we have the potential to be doing, is not only just referring to what ways we can bring attention to the ways we're involved with, so talking about making a new politics right now. I mean, we're not militarized liberation movements like that they're trying to bring to in terms of the 60s and 70s and 80s. I'm talking about what we're doing right now. It's not compatible to not think that all these issues should be related. And I just think we need to there's lots of ways this is happening. And I would really like to challenge, and then my work anyway is trying to challenge the ways we can make these meaningful connections, and whether that's through art, whether it's through conversation, whether it's through production. We have to produce this kind of culture for it to mean something. Because it's there. I mean, we're already there. So.
Just to add on top of that, I think what we're talking about when we're talking about liberation and getting free, we're talking about a cultural shift. And these issues that we're addressing are a means to getting to that shift. So once one thing is down, the other thing has to go. It's not one thing that we're attacking. So people may be activated or drawn to a particular issue, but when we're talking about this cultural shift that needs to happen to value black lives, to value a person instead of a dollar sign, then all of these things take part. So even if you don't see the connection, just know that you're connected because all of this shit's gotta go.
I want to back up what you're saying. I think it's really important that we don't treat Black Lives and Brown Lives Matter as a fad. And we don't want this to be oh, this is old news a year from now, because that was a problem that actually happened after the Occupy movement. A lot of people were just oh, we're 99%. Well, guess what? We're still 9%, and more importantly, the 1% have more now than they did when Occupy started. So these are things that we have to integrate into a culture of resistance. And so the other thing is that Black and Brown Lives Matter is not just a national question, but an international question. I mean, if you look at, I thought it was important that people did come out, especially Muslims in France, came out to protest the killing of Charlie Hebdo, a journalist. However, at the same time, 2,000 people were massacred in Nigeria, at least. And the media is hardly paying any attention to it, besides vilifying Muslims again. So we have a question where this is not just a national issue, but this is a global issue. 85 people own more wealth than the poorest half of the entire globe. 85 people own more wealth than 3.5 or 3 point something billion people. And the poorest half of the globe are almost all Black and brown. And also, they only own 1% of the global wealth. So this is an issue where this system, the pillars of this system are not that complex. They're racism, they're the oppression of women, they're nationalism, and also cultural tribalism. And there's just a few things that really keep this system of exploitation going. And so we have to constantly attack those things, and that's why I think we cannot let Black Lives Matter and Brown Lives Matter go away. This has to be a constant movement that will continue on, just like the civil rights movement, for decades.
Something that we've had a conversation as like the broader immigrant rights movement, the Black Lives Matter is how can we actually bring all the bodies together. But what people don't understand is that there's a lot of these systems that are put in place that are out there to attack us. Specifically, who has heard of secure communities? So like secure communities is the system that immigration and customs enforcement put with the local enforcement, that whenever somebody who is brown is stopped, the police officer can act as an immigration and customs enforcement officer by running their fingerprints. And if your fingerprints are ran, they show up in the system saying if you're caught crossing the border or whenever you are stopped, saying that you're undocumented, you go to prison, they send you to a processing facility where you're your way to get court. So not only that, but also the system that's put in place with LGBT immigrants who are here seeking asylum. Like we need to talk about how transgender women are put into detention facilities. And how not only are they 99% of the LGBT people that are living here who come from different countries qualify for asylum, but why are they being deported? Why is ICE seeking to put them in detention centers, put them in solitary confinement? On a local level, you can't. Something that I heard on the panel is this guy was saying how it's already like fear is taught to young people that way they don't want to go out. So that's the fear that was put into undocumented immigrants. Right. So when I was a kid, my mom was like, "No, don't call the police because that we're gonna expose their documented status." So it's like the people in that neighborhood living there, they're constantly afraid to get out on the streets and drive because of the checkpoints that are happening. Some of them don't have a driver's license. And then something that we've been organizing around, we go to the county commissioners and we're like, hey, this is an issue, what can we do about it? And they're like, oh, there's nothing that we can do to talk to the sheriff. But what happened in New York City? They had IDs for people who are living there, right? So it's like they're constantly telling us that they can't do anything, but we know that they can. And I also wanted to talk about, just in general, the international thing that Tony brought up. Back when the VR 43 happened recently, it's like this whole chaos is happening between the United States and Mexico. And something that was really interesting was that when people were saying how are drugs coming into here? How are the weapons coming in? Exactly. Like how this whole idea that every day 34,000 beds have to be filled up in ICE detention centers, right? Why? Because that's making the system money. And unless we can't find a way to defeat it, that's always going to keep happening. Wells Fargo is always going to be there working hand in hand with ICE. So we need to figure out how to actually tackle the system together with Black and brown lives.
I don't know if anybody's ever read into like the financial report of the CCA, which is the Correctional Corporate of America, the Corporation of America. But basically, like last year, there were $3 billion corporations, and they represented all the corporations around the world, from around the nation. $3 billion. Just off of that, $3 billion alone is enough to fund all the kids in America to go to college. But instead, that's $3 billion that we use to spend on 85% are non-violent offenders, if they are offenders for some reason. Regardless, 85% of the people are no harm to public safety that we spend $3 billion a year on. Piggybacking off what you were saying as far as the amount of money that's made off of that, and then even still with the checkpoints and all the things that go into it, the barriers that's put in the good people's way from becoming, fruitful citizens of this nation is ungodly. If you look at America, like there's 3 ways, and I teach my kids this all the time, like the path of citizens, there's three criteria that you have to fit. One is your profession, and when you immigrate, like that gives you preferential treatment. 2 is your family status that's already here. So if your family who fled, that was seeking asylum, did not get granted asylum, like chances are that's not going to happen for you no matter what happens. And then 3 is also sexual based. So like they give like males are treated with preferential treatment as opposed to females when it comes to that. Then it also flips. Have you ever looked at the citizenship test? Like we gave that to the Guilford County School District, the AP kids. only 30% of our kids in AP classes were able to pass the citizenship test. 30% of the AP kids. So like, imagine the people that are coming here, that ESL, having to learn these things that our kids that are thought of as to be the best and the brightest aren't even taught. It's disgusting, really.
Part of that is also connected to like the curriculum itself. Like, what is that even what we want people to be learning? Because like so much of it, like it's like, oh yeah, who are our founding fathers? Like bullshit, like racism, genocide. Like that's those aren't our founding fathers. Like the Declaration of Independence was
Plagiarized.
Yeah, it was plagiarized. That was the fucking Senecas. Like come on, like it's not like it's not right. I mean, it's not accurate. So yeah, it's like a lot of it is the curriculum within the school system. You know, as it was being said on the the larger thing, it's like, what is it that people are being taught? What are we not being taught? Like, I don't know, like growing up, like I'm from New Bedford, Massachusetts. Like that is the seat of the Wampanoag Nation. That is where my grandmother's family is from. And like, I knew nothing through the school system about us other than like, oh, there was like the Pilgrims and Indians, and like we had a name. We have a name. We have multiple names. And so, I don't know, it's just like super complicated that like that shit's not talked about. Fuck your AP.
My very first lesson while teaching was I compared John Locke to Malcolm X. And I got at least 30 phone calls from parents like, what the hell is this? So it's like, fuck the curriculum because I'm teaching what I want. You know, like I graduated from college, I do what the hell I want in my classroom. You want my class? Teach my class better than me. Make your test scores better than mine. And as last time I checked, I'm still kicking ass with my test scores. And I'm teaching my shit how I want to. And I've been talking about shit in the process.
What school do you teach at?
I'm at Southern Guilford High School. We were academy school too, so you would set them off with the real education.
So I want to open space for any like last few comments, and then unfortunately it's going to be time for us to wrap up soon because we want to be very mindful of everybody's time and everybody's day. You know, folks have long days, but we're going to wrap up in about 10 minutes. So I want to give it for some final comments. Eve, Val, and then April, and that's it.
This is a question to the panelists, in that like I haven't heard some of these terms and some of the parts of these stories that some of the panelists talk about, and I'm sure you guys are able to watch TV because so if you guys can explain or maybe try to express how you stay connected without being overwhelmed, and how you determine what's important to like recap and retell to people.
I'm actually going to say something to that. I admit, through the media, I don't watch television, and anything that I do get in is actually from my radio or maybe my laptop. And even that sometimes is too much information, only because it's just a lot of it right then and there, and sometimes it's only one side of it. How I stay connected is in reference to my circle, my inner circle, and sometimes my outer circle, and things that move my friends. For me, that's what makes me emotional. That's what makes me sit at the table with them and hear their voices. When we think about issues, all of the issues that has been shared today, they're all human issues. I mean, every one of us is connected to a particular issue, but still, it connects and threads to human issues. So that's what moves me when I hear my friends maybe not necessarily being able to lift up their own voices. For instance, just a couple of days ago, there was this individual who had passed away in Colorado, and this particular person was gay. And she went to a funeral, the family went to a funeral home that was actually going to do the service there, but because of certain pictures that were shown, of showing intimacy, just a kiss, they didn't do the service. I think that's a problem. You know, there are other problems within our communities. Folks are dying. We know that. Medicaid expansion is not happening or hasn't happened yet. I get motivated because I think all of these things are threaded and connected. I have friends in Gaza during this past summer. Heavy artillery were on their bodies. I'm really connected to that. I get very emotional about that. I have a son, I have 2 boys. My 18-year-old son many times will not go outside if he doesn't have to, and he will not ride the public bus because there's just a lot of violence out there, a lot of aggression. So it's sad. It's very sad. But I personally don't allow that to stop me because I get motivated by the things that I hear from my folks and my friends. That's how I stay connected. That's how I choose to decide where I want to be, what space I want to sit at, what table I want to sit at and cover that space. And I think that's, for the most part, why we're all here too. There are issues, even though they may be your particular issues, but it's also an issue that also lends a voice to someone else. I think that's why we're here. I think also too is the next step. Where do we go? How do we keep people connected? Where do we go from here? That's what I'd like to start a conversation about too. How do we keep this movement and make it bigger?
I would say just really quick, I think the majority of people in this room are woke. Like I think the spaces that we work in, the spaces that the positions we occupy within society particularly, it's a liminal one, it's in between, it's outside. And it's not that I think we have the potentials there, it's just a way of mobilizing. It's just a way of finding connections. And I find there's many ways to do it. There's obviously material ways to go about it. There's obviously more social and interpersonal ways to go about it. But I just want to respect that power that's already implicit in this space to be able to see the kind of connection, to be able to see the kind of access to information, access to power that we already have. And that's what I'm here.
Are you asking like how do you stay connected with issues?
Yeah, I mean,
So I want to like direct you to the Wildfire Project. You've heard about it. It's this national project that started like 2 years ago, and they're connected with different groups, Greek Defenders, Ohio State Association's Black Project, Gateway. So if you go to their page on Facebook and online, you can get connected to all those amazing people in that online. It's like you need to look at the people that are leading the battle, not the other side.
the wildfire.
And then Leanie's part of that too.
Could I pass this sheet to the panelists to collect just some basic information, like your name, your organization, and email, if I can get a comment as similar and well-spoken as we will send tonight.
I think it's pretty easy for me to stay connected just because I'm on a college campus, but I also think that all of the issues that we've been talking about have similar roots, so in that way it's easy for me to stay connected to all of the things that are going on. I think we're all collectively getting fucked, sorry for the language, but we're all collectively getting fucked. So there's no way for me to just stay in like my little corner working on my little issue and not collaborating with the people who are also doing similar work that I'm doing. I think that not collaborating and not talking to people does a disservice to whatever work you're doing. Like at my school, there's like 3 groups doing work on sexual assault prevention. And I'm just thinking, like, why aren't y'all talking to each other? Like, y'all have individual streams of money that you can put together to make the cause stronger and to make a bigger impact. I think the big problem is that they don't talk to each other enough about things.
My name is Rebecca Bonilla. I am officially 2 weeks employed by the Guilford County School System, which is exciting, and also it's been pretty tough. I work with little kindergartners at Joyner Elementary. I'm also an immigrant. I was born and raised in Ecuador until I was 10. Spent 5 years in Brooklyn, spent 4 years in Boston, spent some time in DC and in Greensboro. I feel like, but I come from a very well-to-do family. I feel like my diversity has served as more of an advantage to me than a struggle throughout my life, so I'm lucky to be able to claim that. I know that's not true for most people. And I'm struggling, feeling like I'm in the periphery of all of these circles, and struggling to find that connection that I know is there, and I hear y'all talking, and I see your expression in your faces, and like, feel like I'm reaching out for it, but I feel very much still on the outskirts of it. So I'm here to draw the strength from y'all's search and expression of the connection for your cause and the causes of others, to gather that strength, to give that strength to my little ones. I work in a predominantly students of color school, and I want to give them the strength and the power to create this counter narrative and this individuality and whatever that means to them. But I struggle with the lack of my own connection to the cause to give that to them. So I hope to continue to be involved and continue to draw that bridge and as much as I can. But I do feel maybe I'm just a very cynical person, but a bit of a loss and just like not really knowing where to turn or how it's gonna work out.
We'll get there and we'll start with faith and love.
Awesome. Well, those would be good networking to start for sure. Awesome. Thank you.
So I want to honor Val and April both at Art Stack, and then we're going to transition to folks who have new organizations in space that might have announcements or want to talk about the work they do as a way to get folks connected. So Val and then April, and then we're going to go to that.
I just want to say thank you to the everyone who was instrumental in creating this space. I feel like I could sit here and talk and listen all night long, and I'm just kind of like thirsty to hear more from everyone, and so just thank you so much. And I also I read an article the other day about Fort Fisher out in North Carolina, which was like one of the instrumental, which I got a chance to visit this year, but was like one of the instrumental battles of the Civil War. And it just got me thinking, and the reason why is because when they took down Fort Fisher, they stopped the supply for the Confederacy and the Union. Like, what it got me thinking about is like, we talk a lot about describing the problems and the things that are fucking us up. I want to shift that conversation to mapping those things and finding our points of leverage, where when we resist, we fuck them up. And so, I mean, that's like, I'm just really feeling that, and we've been in some organizing conversations and just shifting it from I'm describing the intricacies of the ways that they destroy people to I'm seeing how those systems flow together and where we have the chance to interrupt that flow. And so I'm just kind of putting that intention and that hope out there that we can organize ourselves to have that conversation. I feel like that'll be a way for us to make this last and a way for us to learn how to sustain this work we're all doing. And I just, again, thanks everyone. I really appreciate this thing.
Oh man, I was actually gonna say the opposite of that, but it could be a both and. I was gonna say, and I was like, I'm a Jersey girl, transient to Greensboro, so I've been down here 5 years, and I've saw the erection of maybe like 3 police stations within like a 2-mile radius, and we still have a visible homeless population here in Greensboro. So if you think about the priorities of our city, so what I was going to say is that what I'm here in like these spaces and stuff like that, what I'm starting to hear is like we're very hopeful that we, and we do believe that we will win, and we're coming together in really large ways in the spirit. We're speaking the names of our ancestors so frequently that we know that this is such a divine time of change. But what I'm missing, what I'm hearing is like we're not being as critical, I think, as we need for local Greensboro, because as goes the South, as goes the nation, there's people watching North Carolina to let them, as much as North Carolina can press the boot on our necks any deeper, they will follow suit. So it is Greensboro that will suppress our information from us. Like we were talking about before, that's always a tactic, that's a silencing tactic, that's a way of disconnecting, that's a way for us to internalize us thinking that it's us, and it's not us. Capitalism is the culprit. So we have to think about like, it's Greensboro, it's Duke playing a part, it's North Carolina playing all those parts, like rolling us back, that you won't, when you file taxes, you won't get earned income credit. That's a knock on poor people, low income people. We didn't expand Medicaid. That's thousands of deaths. I went and tried to get Obamacare, I fall in a gap. What's a gap? That means my coffin, that's a 6 feet like gap. So it's just like, this is really happening. And so sometimes I think like, yes, we can start seeing these things as structural ways, but we really need to be critical on how they're showing up in our every single day and saying that is racism, that's transphobia, that's homophobia, and being really intentional about saying these things, because I don't want to be us in spaces kind of thinking that it's us, like when you're in like this, like UNCG, like UNCG is a colonizer. You know what I'm saying? Like hands down, without a doubt, going into brown people's communities, low income people's communities, gay people's communities, my community, and then just keep on breaching into systems wide. And we have to know where their money is, where their money is. We are living in a college town. If you are thinking that that money is not being funneled into the prison pipeline, we're just disillusioned. So I just think pulling over those covers of like let's reclaim democracy, let's reclaim our tax dollar, and that's the economic justice that we really need to focus on. Like, yeah, we can do co-ops, and they're still taking money out of our checks, and we need to know where that money is, and it's usually going to be supporting really oppressive state structures that we can be parked outside against and really turning this around. So I appreciate you, but I'm just saying, like Greensboro. Like, that's the first thing I learned when I came here was the Greensboro massacre, and I know that there's Greensboro and North Carolina natives that didn't even know that at all. So that's real. It's not in our Civil Rights Museum, which the city is trying to do a very hostile takeover around. That's a very poignant issue right now about those kinds of suppressions, and like, this is like what we're coming against like time and time again. So it's like, I just think it's imperative that we keep on calling shit shit.
That note, this has been a great conversation. No, really, like, this has been like a really like rich conversation the whole entire day, from the beginning of like our march and rally to our live stream panel to this community building session. It's all been like really great, and it's just the beginning of the conversation. And there are so many amazing people in this room who do such great
including
work.
you. Thanks, Holden.
I can't do anything by myself because I have so many amazing people. Everybody at AFSC, all the amazing organizational sponsors that are at the bottom of this flyer. QPOP, Freedom Day Movement, Greensboro for Justice, UNCG AFS Club, Beloved Community Center, WGS Department, really great folks. So I want to open up the space right now for other people to shout out their organization and talk.